There are moments when a truth is buried so deeply that everyone believes it will remain hidden forever. Silence becomes a shield. Fear becomes the language people speak without saying a single word. Smiles cover uncertainty, ordinary conversations disguise extraordinary secrets, and those closest to the situation quietly convince themselves that time will erase what was never meant to be forgotten. But there comes a moment when heaven interrupts human plans. A moment when what has remained hidden begins to rise into the light, not because people are ready, but because truth has reached the hour appointed for its revelation. If this message has found you today, remain present until the very end, because what is about to unfold is far greater than anyone expected. Your person has been carrying the weight of a secret that has silently shaped every decision they have made over the past weeks. At first, they believed the truth could remain safely locked away. They convinced themselves that protecting everyone from temporary pain would somehow preserve peace. Yet with every passing day, that hidden burden became heavier. Every smile required greater effort. Every conversation demanded careful words. Every ordinary moment became another reminder that silence was slowly becoming impossible to maintain. It all began with an unexpected discovery. Not one that immediately changed the world around them, but one that quietly changed everything within them. At first, only a few people knew. Whispers replaced honest conversations. Questions were answered with half-truths. Important details disappeared behind carefully chosen explanations. Everyone involved believed they were protecting something precious. Yet they failed to realize that truth has a life of its own. It cannot remain buried forever. As the days passed, your person noticed small changes that others overlooked. Certain conversations suddenly stopped when someone entered the room. Familiar faces exchanged uncertain glances before speaking. Plans changed without explanation. Promises became strangely vague. No one openly admitted that something significant was happening, but the atmosphere itself carried a quiet tension that became impossible to ignore. The deeper they looked, the more they realized that this was never simply about keeping information private. It was about protecting a story that no longer wanted to remain hidden. At night, when everything around them became still, they found themselves asking questions that refused to leave their heart. Why had everything become so secretive? Why did every answer seem incomplete? Why did their spirit continue whispering that something far greater was unfolding beneath the surface? Those questions stayed with them long after everyone else had gone to sleep. And strangely enough, the silence itself began revealing more than words ever could. There are moments when God allows quietness to become a mirror. A place where hidden intentions slowly reveal themselves without anyone speaking them aloud. Your person began noticing those moments everywhere. What once looked ordinary now carried unusual meaning. Simple conversations felt carefully rehearsed. Ordinary decisions suddenly seemed connected to something much larger than anyone was willing to admit. Still, they chose patience. They believed that if they waited long enough, someone would eventually tell the whole truth. But that day never came. Instead, more silence arrived. More unanswered questions. More careful explanations. More hidden emotions. Every passing day strengthened one realization inside their heart. This secret was no longer being protected because it was fragile. It was being protected because someone feared what would happen once the truth reached the light. That realization changed everything. For the first time, your person stopped searching for explanations from other people. Instead, they quietly began seeking wisdom from God. Not for curiosity. Not for judgment. But for discernment. They prayed for the ability to recognize truth without becoming consumed by assumptions. They asked for peace instead of panic. Clarity instead of confusion. Understanding instead of endless speculation. And something remarkable began happening. The more they prayed, the calmer their spirit became. The fear that once filled every unanswered question slowly gave way to quiet confidence. Not because every answer had suddenly appeared, but because they sensed that heaven was already moving behind scenes no human hand could fully control. Sometimes God's greatest work begins in complete silence. Long before people recognize it. Long before circumstances visibly change. Long before hidden things are finally revealed. Your person began trusting that if God wanted something to remain hidden, no human could expose it. But if God decided the appointed time had arrived, no human effort would be able to keep it covered. That realization brought both comfort and trembling. Comfort because truth belongs safely in God's hands. Trembling because they knew that once heaven opened the door, nothing would ever return to the way it had been before. As this awareness grew stronger, memories from recent weeks suddenly appeared in an entirely different light. Conversations that once felt meaningless now carried hidden significance. Delays that once seemed frustrating suddenly looked intentional. Unexpected encounters began forming a pattern too consistent to ignore. Piece by piece, the story was quietly assembling itself. Not through rumors. Not through assumptions. But through moments that seemed guided by something far greater than coincidence. And then, something happened that your person never expected. A single conversation. A single unexpected detail. A single moment that made every unanswered question begin pointing toward one extraordinary truth. It wasn't merely that people had been hiding something. It was why they had been hiding it. And that reason would change the way everyone involved understood this story forever. That unexpected moment refused to leave your person's thoughts. It wasn't dramatic. There was no loud announcement, no undeniable proof placed directly before them. Instead, it arrived quietly, almost unnoticed, as though heaven had gently lifted one corner of a curtain that had been hiding the larger picture all along. In that single instant, they realized something they had overlooked from the very beginning. Every delay, every carefully chosen word, every uncomfortable silence had been connected by one invisible thread. It was never only about protecting information. It was about protecting a narrative. For a long time, everyone involved believed that if enough time passed, questions would slowly disappear. They believed memories would fade, curiosity would weaken, and life would simply continue forward. But truth has never depended on the passing of time. Truth waits patiently until the moment appointed for it to rise, and once that moment arrives, no amount of silence can hold it back. As your person reflected on everything that had happened, they began noticing something even more remarkable. Every attempt to avoid the subject only created more uncertainty. Every explanation that seemed complete somehow left another question unanswered. Every effort to move on quietly brought the same issue back into focus. It was almost as if unseen hands were gently reminding everyone that unfinished truth never truly disappears. That realization filled their heart with both peace and urgency. Peace, because they sensed that God had never lost sight of the situation. Urgency, because they understood that the season of silence was slowly coming to an end. There were evenings when they sat alone, replaying recent events in their mind. Faces appeared in their memories with surprising clarity. Expressions that once seemed ordinary now carried hidden emotion. They remembered how certain people quickly changed the subject whenever this baby was mentioned. They remembered how some conversations ended the moment deeper questions were asked. At the time those moments seemed insignificant. Looking back now, they felt impossible to ignore. The more they reflected, the more one question continued echoing within them. If there was nothing to hide, why was everyone so afraid of the truth? That question refused to leave. It followed them through quiet mornings. It stayed with them during ordinary routines. It lingered even in moments when they tried convincing themselves to let everything go. Then, during one peaceful time of prayer, something shifted inside their spirit. Instead of asking God to reveal hidden details, they found themselves praying for something entirely different. They prayed for wisdom. They prayed for patience. Most of all, they prayed that whatever truth came into the light would bring healing rather than division, understanding rather than confusion, and peace instead of fear. That prayer changed the direction of everything. For the first time, they stopped chasing answers. Instead, they trusted that God would reveal only what needed to be revealed, exactly when it was needed. And almost immediately, unexpected pieces of the story began falling into place. Not through rumors. Not through accusations. But through quiet confirmations that arrived one after another. A forgotten conversation suddenly made sense. An unexpected message answered a question they had carried for weeks. A small detail that once seemed meaningless became one of the most important parts of the entire story. Slowly, the picture became clearer. Your person realized that the greatest secret had never been about the baby itself. The greatest secret was the fear living inside the hearts of those trying to control the story. Fear has a remarkable way of convincing people that hiding the truth will somehow protect them. But fear cannot rewrite what heaven has already written. It cannot erase purpose. It cannot silence God's perfect timing. As this understanding settled into their heart, they no longer felt anger toward anyone involved. Instead, they felt compassion. Because they realized that people often make fearful decisions while believing they are doing the right thing. Sometimes they hide things because they are ashamed. Sometimes because they are afraid of judgment. Sometimes because they cannot imagine what will happen once everything becomes known. Yet God's purpose has never depended upon human fear. His light reaches places darkness believes it can own forever. Your person now understood why they had felt such unusual peace despite carrying so many unanswered questions. God had never asked them to force the truth into the open. He had simply asked them to remain faithful while heaven prepared the right moment. That moment was now drawing closer than ever. Every passing day brought another quiet confirmation. Every unexpected conversation removed another layer of uncertainty. Every prayer strengthened the confidence that what was hidden would soon stand in full view. And then came the realization that made their hearts stand still. This baby had never been forgotten by God. Long before anyone attempted to shape the story, heaven already knew every chapter. Long before people whispered in secret, God had already seen every hidden conversation. Long before fear entered the room, His purpose had already been established. That understanding brought tears to your person's eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming gratitude. Because they finally understood that no human plan is greater than God's perfect timing. No hidden agenda can delay His purpose forever. No secret remains buried once He says. No more secrets. At that very moment, your person realized the story was no longer moving toward uncertainty. It was moving toward revelation. And the final truth waiting ahead would not only explain everything that had happened. It would reveal why God allowed the silence to last exactly as long as it did. As the final pieces of the story settled into place, your person realized they had been looking at everything through the wrong lens. For weeks, they believed this journey was about discovering what people were trying to hide. But after countless moments of prayer, reflection, and quiet waiting, they understood that heaven was never asking them to become an investigator. Heaven was teaching them to become a witness to God's perfect timing. That single realization changed everything. They stopped chasing whispers. They stopped searching for hidden conversations. They stopped allowing uncertainty to control their peace. Instead, they placed the entire situation into God's hands, trusting that if He wanted something revealed, no human effort could permanently conceal it. And almost immediately, an incredible calm settled over their heart. The fear that once followed every unanswered question began disappearing. The frustration that had filled their thoughts slowly gave way to patience. For the first time since this unexpected journey began, they understood that truth does not become stronger because people defend it. Truth is already strong enough on its own. It simply waits for the moment God appoints. Looking back now, your person can clearly see how every delay carried purpose. Every unanswered question forced them to rely less on human understanding and more on divine wisdom. Every closed conversation pushed them closer to prayer instead of panic. Every confusing moment became another reminder that God's plans are never interrupted by human decisions. There were days when they wondered why heaven seemed so silent. Now they understand. Silence was never the absence of God. It was the place where God was preparing hearts before revealing what they were finally ready to receive. Many people believe that when nothing appears to be happening, heaven has forgotten them. But your person has learned something completely different. Some of God's greatest works happen where human eyes cannot yet see. Roots grow before trees appear. Morning arrives before the sun is fully visible. And truth begins moving long before anyone recognizes its footsteps. That understanding has completely transformed the way they see this baby. No longer do they see only questions. They see purpose. No longer do they focus on secrecy. They see divine protection. No longer do they wonder who tried to hide the story. They now wonder how beautifully God preserved it until the right moment. Because no purpose established by God can be erased by fear. No blessing written by His hand can be cancelled by human uncertainty. No future He has prepared can remain hidden forever once His appointed time arrives. My beloved child, If these words have reached your heart today, remember this truth whenever life seems filled with unanswered questions. There will be seasons when people misunderstand you, moments when circumstances appear confusing, and chapters where silence feels louder than every answer you hope to receive. Do not mistake those seasons for abandonment. Very often they are moments when I am preparing something your eyes cannot yet fully understand. Do not build your future upon rumors. Do not allow fear to become your guide. Do not let temporary uncertainty steal the peace I have placed within your heart. Walk forward with quiet confidence, knowing that what I have established for your life will never depend upon the approval, opinions, or hidden decisions of other people. Trust my timing. Trust my wisdom. Trust my purpose. Even when the road ahead seems unclear, I am already walking before you, preparing places your feet have not yet reached. What appears delayed is often being carefully arranged. What appears hidden is often being protected. And what seems impossible today may become tomorrow's testimony when my perfect timing is revealed. Your person has finally discovered that the greatest miracle in this journey was never exposing a secret. The greatest miracle was discovering that God's truth never loses its way. It never arrives too early. It never arrives too late. It always comes at the exact moment it is needed most. So release every anxious thought that has been weighing upon your heart. Leave behind the need to understand every detail before taking your next step. Choose faith over fear. Choose peace over confusion. Choose hope over endless questioning. Because when God declares, "No more secrets," He is not speaking to create fear. He is speaking to bring freedom. He is bringing light where uncertainty once lived. He is replacing confusion with clarity. He is reminding you that His plans have never changed, even when human plans seemed uncertain. Thank you for staying until the very end of this message. May your heart remain steady, your spirit remain peaceful, and your faith grow stronger with every step you take. The God who watches over every hidden chapter is also guiding every page that still lies ahead, and His purpose for your life will always shine brighter than any secret that tried to remain in the shadows.